spawning down in the bottom center side, currently down 1-2 versus his teammate Friend, and very interesting Zerg play style. It is going to be Squirtle, and in the center right side, it is going to be Curious.
Very dangerous positions here for Curious, of course. When you spawn close by air, Warp Prism build is very strong once again, blocking off that force-filled ramp. But anything is possible going into this game, of course. A must-win for Squirtle. He's been under these circumstances before where he has to win a game, and I don't think he's going to be feeling too much pressure, especially in the own comfort of the team house of Startail. But anything is possible here. The question is, usually the question is, what is Protoss going to do against a standard Zerg player? But in this series, it's actually, wait a minute, what is Curious going to do?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, we haven't seen anything but interesting games out of him so far. Is going to be scouting out with this probe here correctly. The first try for Squirtle, get a good read on, as you know, it's basically going to say, hey, do I need to get down my forge? Do I need to get down anything else? The probe is going to go ahead and scout around, and we'll see that there is no spawning pool just yet, so he's going to be feeling just fine here if he decides to go for that Nexus first. We did see him go for the forge first before, just to play it safe here. But given the map and what we've seen so far, what are kind of your predictions overall for PvZ here?
You could get away with Nexus first here a lot, and it looks like he may try to do it, but there was a 13 spawning pool again here, so that's kind of saying, well, I hope you go Nexus first, which you may be aiming for, because I can squeeze in links to kill the cannon before it's ready. So he's got to be very careful with that, but on a map this big, we could see a long dramatic game. It really depends on more so what Squirtle has planned, because if he goes for another all-in, a Mortal or Warp Prism all-in, then the game could end very fast. But if he plays it, slow, Sentry, or Mortal expand to a third, we could see a very long, dramatic game. So it's all in the player's hands.
And you also have to remember that based on how this map is laid out, if he does go for that 2-base timing, I mean, say he's attacking a third base, he can be attacked from 2 different angles, which is not common for a third base. If he goes for the natural, the same thing. Just because there's ramps and destructible rocks, that can be cleared out to help clean that one up. So I don't know if he's going to be planning to go for that, but if he does, he is going to have to watch out for it. I feel like he messed up his wall in here a little bit. I can't imagine that was intentional, but perhaps it was. As you can see, an extra pylon being thrown down there, a cannon on the way here before he's going to be getting out that next gateway right now, which it looks like he is going to indeed be saving up for. And right there, is that wall in intentional? I'm kind of confused by this wall in here.
To be honest, I'm not sure. Like, I mean, as much as I'd love to answer it, I'm not sure why he left the gap there. I mean, basically, with the way it's mapped up right now, it has, I think, a little space for a probe. Yeah, so, I mean, he could have gone pylon, forge, gateway, then gap, but with double pylons, I'm not sure why he put that there.
I think he is walled in completely tight. I think he tried to send a probe there. Either way, I haven't seen a wall in quite like that, but I'm really curious to see what Squirtle has planned on the back of this. You do have to remember, though, that there are destructible rocks between the natural and the third base, so sometimes what you will see Protoss do is wall in, clean out those rocks, and then they actually only have one entrance into either of those bases. But for now, he does have his double gas here on the way right now, and the relatively early third here for Curious as well. And based on what Curious has seen, is going an early third here. Is this a good choice?
Early third, yeah, completely fine to do so. And the probe will go in scouted out too. And I was staring at that wall in for a while, just trying to figure it out. But I think you answered your own question, was that he basically wanted a wall off. I didn't think it was a wall off, but against the 13 pool, you have to be a little bit careful in case lings do run by. And with the additional pylon there, it actually makes a full wall off with the gateway in a bit of a funky position.
And the Cybercore going to be on the way here as well. And I'm just really curious to see exactly what Curious does. Normally, I mean, what you would expect Zerg players to do here is just make a lot of drones, kind of sit back, react to exactly what's going on. But so far, we just haven't seen that from Curious. So it definitely makes his playstyle very unique and also very interesting to watch here. Now, he does have one Zealot here on the field. 3 Lings is not enough to kill off that Zealot. I don't care how good your micro is. But does just need to be careful with those early units. We do see a Stalker on the way, but you do have to remember that with this complete tight wall, and these units are completely stuck out in the center of the map. Even if he falls back to that cannon, they can still be surrounded and picked off. It does look like Squirtle right now, though, is going to be moving out with these units. Has even rallied a Sentry up there, which means that he needs to be careful with this. There he goes. He does rally it back inside his main base, and already telling that Sentry to attack those rocks once it spawns. But has to be careful here with these first initial units because, I mean, we have seen Curious make a lot of links here to clean stuff like this up.
The way that Squirtle's playing this out, it looks like he's going Void Ray Phoenix play, and he has walled off, like we mentioned at the front, so he will be expanding towards a third base and won't be going for a 2-base all-in whatsoever. We see double gas has gone down for Curious. The evolution chamber down 2. No Roach Warren yet because he didn't see anything when he poked at the front with the initial 3 lings. He didn't see +1 being researched, so he's not afraid of any +1 Zealot attacks. But the Zealots and Stalkers, the Zealot goes down, the Stalker will fall if it's not Michael correctly. Those units are plus back, but the Void Ray and Phoenixes are the damage dealers that the Squirrel's looking to deal with now.
The Stalker is indeed going to try and run all the way back on home. +1 attack once again is about 1/4 completed here. And does he have out? Yes, he does. That Void Ray is now done. Kills off the Overlord, immediately revealing to the Zerg player that, hey, I'm going for air. You don't know exactly how many Phoenix I'm going to get, but you do know that I have Phoenix and Void Rays. Usually what you're going to see is about 3 or 4 Phoenix here, unless it's going to be some sort of crazy, continued air pressure, especially if you get a little bit of momentum going on with the Void Ray Phoenix. You'll see them followed up with even more Phoenix here. It is still dumping Chrono Boost right now, has supply block to Zerg. We also have 3 gateways on the way, but he's got to be having to clear out these rocks for quite some time, just because they have so much HP and armor.
Yeah, and he's going to lose a Stalker killing those rocks if he doesn't actually be careful. There's enough units to actually slam it against the wall, and the Stalker takes damage and could actually be surrounded there, and it's going to be.
He is forced to use a force field, and is not enough, as that one last Zergling actually took it out there. So not only did he expel some of his energy, but he also lost that Stalker as well. Now, every single unit is so important for Protoss at this stage of the game. I mean, not only just in Void Ray and Phoenix, but even in that Zealot and Stalker, he would love to keep those alive. It makes your army so much more powerful. You can also use it, of course, to start busting down these rocks, which he desperately needs to do. Because if there was a Roach timing, if there was a Hydra timing even at his front door, I mean, the only thing he's going to have to deal with it is one Void Ray. And we've seen a lot of Protoss lose, even though they have air and there's no anti-air for the Zerg. It doesn't matter, because Roaches and Lings are so quick, so cheap, that they can't kill those units quickly enough. So he knows that. He needs to bust these down, is exactly what he's going to do here. But he also has a lot of money to expand here if he decides to. But what do you think about the potential for Colossus here with this robotics?
Colossus, absolutely. He's going straight for Colossus to protect this third base because, Curious is a player that likes Hydras. Unlike, he's not actually doing it this time, but he does usually like to throw them in there. And you have to get the Robotics Bay to protect. Even against Infestors and Infested Terrans, you need Colossus because there are timings you die before that. But right now, a lot of Lings go down to that third base expecting it to be there. But they're like, wait a minute, it's not there, which is very surprising.
Oh, but he also gets a big surround on these sentries here, once again doing more damage than you would expect with just a couple of Lings here, and he does end up losing more than the Protoss, but I almost feel like sentries are worth more than just the resources that they cost, because they sit back, and while they aren't good at direct engagements, they are good for those force fields, so he has to be so careful with this small army that he does have. His Void Ray took a ton of damage from those Queens, more than he might expect, but he has halted Phoenix production at 4, which means he's going to go for harassing these drones, but he's got to watch out for pathogen glands. He's going to be finishing up here in a second. He should be aware of this. He is aware of the Spire as well, but a lot of times what you'll see happen is Protoss lose these Phoenix at around the 13-minute mark, and that's not something you necessarily have to have happen, because later in the game, down goes the Void Ray. Later in the game, you want to use the Phoenix to pick up the Infestors, so we'll see if he's going to be careful here, but so far, he's kind of on his toes after that Zergling surround.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenixes are so cost efficient. If you just keep on using their energy without getting caught by Infestors, of course, you pick up drones throughout the entire game, you get a big count, you can scout the 4th base, which he's looking for now. And upon seeing the 4th base, he knows that his opponent, Curious, is playing very normal. So you expect the Hive to be down any second now as well. And he's going in for probe kills, but where are the Infestors? They're about, they just popped out on that 3rd base, actually. So if the Phoenix do go in the wrong direction, they will get locked down. And the Observer's going to look to try to find what they are. But so far, so standard. If you look at the resources lost, it's relatively equal by both players.
Yeah, I mean, no player is going to be on their back foot by any means, but the Phoenix have just got to be so careful. I cry a tear every time I see Phoenix die in that 13 to 14-minute mark, just because we've seen Protoss players use them in the past in absorbing a lot of the Corruptor damage, dealing minimal damage to Broodlords, but also, more importantly, picking up the Infestors that love to camp out below the Broodlords, making Blink so inefficient versus Broodlords. So if you can deal with the Infestors, then you're going to be in pretty good shape. He does leave the Phoenix right now hovering above that watchtower, and so far being more defensive with these Phoenix as opposed to offensive. But there is an Infestor hit squad on the right side, and taking a look at the US tab, there's only one observer here, so the chance of that observer spotting these Infestors is relatively small, as that observer is going nowhere fast up at kind of near the natural choke point there. The Corruptors are now out, though, and there is no Hive Tech, so is he looking just to attack with this, or what are these Corruptors here for?
It's the things he's looking to do is go for a massive attack, and if it doesn't work, he can also sit back and fall back and accept a +3 timing. But right now, the way that he's geared up, he's looking for an attack, but I really don't think it's going to work. The spread out, the units, the upgrades, the Colossus, everything's looking absolutely fantastic here for Squirtle to smash this down.
Yeah, the Corruption's going to be coming in here right away. Maybe able to take out the Colossus here using that Corruption ability. Down goes one Colossus. A lot of energy expelled in Infested Terrans here. Remember that Blink is done, so they can safely blink away here in just a moment, but the energy expelled here was huge. Was actually able to do a surprising amount of damage there. It has equaled out the units lost just a little bit, although the energy units here are free. So he's able to kill off just a couple more units there to put him in the lead. But we do see a Templar Archives going to be going down on the back of this. We do see the fleet peeking on the way as well as Hive Tech. So both players... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that's really smart because right now, there's no way he can go Hive and also like prepare for Brood Wars and so on because he just lost all his Infestor energy. So naturally he has to build a new army, a new set of Infestors. And if you think about what Curious is thinking, is that, okay, great, he's going to come attack me, crap, +3 attacks on the way, gotta defend. And Squirtle says, well, yeah, that's really awesome because you're going to defend, you're going to set up new defense. Well, what happens if I don't attack you? What happens if I take a 4th base and go for my mothership faster? And I think that decision by Squirtle has just set him so far ahead of the game, even though supplies really don't show that, as long as he defends against potentially another similar attack as we just saw on his 3rd to his 4th.
And we do actually have War Prism speed upgrade being researched as well, so War Prism going to be just spawning right now. And that means that that's going to open up a lot of harassment potentially. Can warp in. I mean, you can even use High Templar drops, turn them into Archons in the mineral line. You can do some pretty crazy stuff once you have that War Prism speed, and also helps you outrun those pesky Corruptors and dealing with those drops. And what we've seen a lot of Protoss players do is actually get out a lot of War Prisms in late game, not just 1 or 2, but even upwards of 3 and 4, and try and attack multiple locations at once. Get the Zerg players scrambling everywhere, but it can definitely be very, very tough as a lot of Protoss players just want to sit back and max out, which is partially what we're going to be seeing. We do see a big Zergling surround over on the left side base. Is going to be able to kill off, it looks like, the cannons at least, which is going to leave that vulnerable. You got to remember that's 450 minerals on those cannons, and might even get another building there. So these Zerglings have definitely paid for themselves. Got a burrow, and there's no observer here to quite spot this just yet, but is able to make that very unsafe.
I was just going to say, this map is very similar to Shakir's Plateau, and whereas once you get on that map, a 3rd, then you can get an easy 4th. On this map, once you get a 4th, you get an instantly easy 5th. And I love that Curious went in there to borrow links to prevent such an easy 5th from going down, which of course gives him more gas, more options, more upgrades.
And also buying him a lot of time here by forcing that observer to come all the way back. I think that was the one from the main base. So he needs to make sure to get out at least another observer. And is he going to move this observer up here to the additional 5th base? It looks like he will. But I mean, look at that by Curious. He unburrowed even more links. He's burrowed them all over the base here, and is going to be able to maybe keep those alive. I definitely like that. I feel like Burrow is very underutilized by Zerg. But here comes the War Prism.
The Warp Prism's going to come in, and it should warp in a bunch more Zealots to try to go for that base. But look how many Infestors are there waiting, and this, oh dear me, gets shut down pretty fast.
About as easily shut down as you can. I think only going to expel energy here to clean this up. Didn't lose a single Infestor. And for the cost of 4 Zealots and a War Prism, that's going to be huge. And also the War Prism speed. I mean, if he doesn't use War Prisms from here on out, that's definitely not going to end up being worth it. So that is quite a lot of resources lost there. And something to definitely keep in mind. There is another War Prism on the right side. We mentioned High Templar drops. That is a possibility here. And did he research Psystorm? Yes, he did. So could drop them on the drones. But you gotta remember, Psystorm is smaller and drone pathing is better than in StarCraft 1. So it can be very difficult to do as much damage as you would like with Storm drops.
Nidus Worm on the left-hand side here. This is traditional from Curious once again. Uses it to rip apart a late-game Protoss army. And Infested Terrans can easily bring this base down here. So a really smart play here. And he's going to have to force cancel here. A great maneuver. He can even launch Infested Terrans or fungal the probe line on the 4th as well.
The Warp Prism once again moving out on the right side, but that is so many infested Terrans. I don't think there's an infested Terran count. Yes, there is. Actually, in the units tab, you can see 55 there for a second. And that does mean that Nexus is going to fall. These probes getting taken out, at least forced away. Down goes that Nexus, and this only cost him a Nidus one. That's the only thing that ended up costing him. There's way too many spines in the main base, attempting to drop at the natural here. Does get some nice storms off on those drones, but is it going to be enough damage? Because he just lost 2 bases and is only killing a handful of drones.
He did pick off the 5th base of Curious, though, as well, with another Warp Prism. So both of these guys trading blows. He's even going for the +3 missile attacks, which of course used for the infested Terrans, and it will fall down. And both of these guys trading blows, but I think, you know, Protoss did take a severe blow, more so than Zerg this time.
Wasn't able to delay Neural Parasite there at all. That is going to be finished up here relatively soon. The Broodlords have shown their face and saying, hey, we got a lot of Broodlords. You have to figure out how to deal with this, because mixing in a lot of Corruptors, a lot of Broodlords now is very difficult for Protoss to deal with. The Mothership is going to be helpful in that regard, and still chilling out there at that 3rd base, keeping that heavily protected. But you know, with double upgrades on the way for air units, it's going to be tough to deal with that directly head on. And, you know, the ball's kind of in Squirtle's court right now. How does he actually deal with this? He's behind in supply. He does have a lot of money, but still, Broodlords are tough.
Yeah, he needs to add on more Stargates to actually build carriers here. That's kind of the way to deal with a late game Zerg army, and that's something that he's quite missing at the moment, because he's been so, you know, flustered with all these movements, the Warp Prism going around defending his 5th base, and once he gets a bit of breathing room here, I think that's what he's going to do to start to build that up. He's already got +1, he's got the +2 shields. Right now moving out with a handful of gateway units though. He has to be very, very careful. I'm not too sure what he's planning to do there with these units, but a good amount of, oh my god, look at those Zerg upgrades coming in now, just really improving the Corruptor Broodlord army.
Yeah, I mean, 2-2 on the way is just devastating. We saw the Warp Prism go down about a minute ago up in the top right side. That was full of units, but at this point, the Warp Prisms, they're just trying to stabilize the Protoss army here a little bit. He is going to be dropping up here at the, I would assume this is the 5th base right now. Does drop down on the drone. Some storms have been utilized, but again, I mean, he's not really doing massive damage. Sure, he's killing some drones here and there, maybe he's killing the hatcheries. And you got to remember that Curious is maxed out, and he's only got 63 drones. There's a big attack on the left side right now with 4 infestors, but the army size for our Zerg player is 128. That is absolutely huge, even having to use energy on the infested Terrans there. But, you know, you got to be careful versus these infestors, because every base they kill is basically free if they don't die.
And that 5th base goes down once again in the top left, just constantly trading blows, but the Warp Prism does fall down eventually, and the infested Terrans are +2, just bring down bases so incredibly fast. And I was thinking about it just a minute ago, why we didn't see the Stargates come down yet, because Squirrel's got money, he's got time, but what he's planning to do by delaying them is he wants to upgrade them really well first, and then be like, bam, there's +3 carriers on the way, you've got no time to prepare, because the use of Nidus Swim, the use of Overseers and moving around with Changelings and so on, could easily spot and give him an indication that's what Squirrel's plan is going to be.
Yeah, where's he going to hide these Stargates? Could easily hide them in the main base, even throwing down a 2nd Cyber Core just right now, which again is going to be for those upgrades. But you got to remember, you can't go pure carrier, because, you know, you can just spawn a bunch of Corruptors and deal with that. But right now, I mean, the Broodlord count's so high, he could actually get away with that. There's only 3 Corruptors still on the field, 16 Infestors, which Neural Parasite is going to be good versus the carrier, but at the same time, some feedback can instantly kind of negate that right now. But definitely an interesting unit composition here from Curious, very heavy on the Infestors and very heavy on the Broodlords. The 2-2 going to be finishing up here just right about now. And that means that those Broodlords are going to be so much more difficult to deal with. However, you got to remember as Zerg right now that on this map, you're very vulnerable if you actually attack with these Broodlords. So it's still going to be a minute before he's able to get in position to do so.
And here comes the 4 Stargates. Here come the +3 attack, the +3 armor once again. There seems to be an Overseer in the main base here of Squirtle, and it looks like he's going to deploy another Warp Prism. I mean, a Warp Prism and Nidus Worm once again. Changelings are in there to get vision. High Templar warped into feedback and Overseer with no energy left as soon as those Changelings came in. And the Scout, is he going to spot the Stargates? Because that's going to be so big if he gets it.
Yeah, he did spot one of the Stargates there. I don't know if you've seen all of them yet, But he does know at least one carrier is on the way, so that's going to be a good indication that he needs to make more corruptors here. And he immediately starts his +3/+3 as well. So this is about as macro heavy as you can get, given the fact that both players have lost several bases here, so they don't have that big stockpile of resources like you would expect. Yes, it is starting to grow here, but on this map, I've seen it even go much higher than this, just because, I mean, look at how the map is laid out. You get all those bases so easily, and the map is kind of cut in half. But even though it's cut in half, you're still so far away from each other. That's why you see a lot of macro games on this map. But we are indeed going to have 5 carriers on the way. And that +3 attack going to be done here pretty soon for both.
Yeah, Infested Terrans are going to be so strong against all the carriers too, as well as the Corruptors. So very interested to see how this fight's going to actually map itself out here. I'm surprised no one's actually taken an expansion on the right-hand side, one of these floating bases. I would not be surprised if someone did that soon. All the gas available and running out too, especially for Squirtle, who's down at 400 gas. He'd love to get a new base up. Maybe something he'll look to invest into momentarily here. A lot of storms available too for feedbacks. Feedbacks are going to be sick in the end fight, and eventually that's what it's going to come down to. When once of them finally have the army that they're satisfied with, we will see a drop. And with Ventral Sacks coming out, I think that someone will, or it looks like Curious will take an expansion on one of these islands soon.
And right now, Curious is going to be burrowing a lot of Spine Crawlers, even Spore Crawlers being mixed in on the right side. The right side defense is much stronger than the left side, so that's something that Squirtle is going to have to recognize with his scouting and try and attack the much weaker location. But really, how do you break this as Protoss? It's going to be very tough here for Squirtle, but he is getting maxed out. He's still working on upgrades here, has begun getting up his interceptor count, and take a look at the units tab. It's still only 5 corruptors on the field, so it is going to come down to the infestors sacrificing some probes here to deal with this, and even a couple of stalkers. This is a very intentional play. This isn't him messing up at all. It's him wanting to get more High Templar, more carriers, and continuing to get upgrades here as well. But I do like that, at least doing some initial Spine Crawler damage there with these. But as we were mentioning before, I mean, these Broodlords, they move so slow. Their movement speed is 1.41, and that means to get out across the map, it is a long, long time. To put it in perspective, they move slower than High Templar, so it definitely takes a long time here. And really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Apollo, but is Curious just waiting for the attack to actually happen?
Curious is, like, he right now is slowly crawling forward with Creep, Spine, and Spores. It makes his army untouchable, because not only does he have a very powerful, well-created army, with Spores and Spines underneath, it's basically unbeatable. So that's what he's trying to slowly move forward in doing. If he takes the center of the map in the Xel'Naga Towers, he gets the 2 center bases to mine from too, and will finally suffocate his opponent, because he'll just have too much money. And even if he loses a fight, he can build 100 more Corruptors. It doesn't matter. So that's what he's slowly looking to do here. The question is now, is Squirtle now, his upgrades are getting very close to being maxed out. His carriers have +3 attack, they almost have +2 armor. Is he going to start to try to hold one of the flanks, the left or the right, one of the Xel'Naga Towers, to try to combat this slow push?
He is going to have double digits in carriers here pretty soon. And I'm surprised that the Corruptor count is still so low, but at the same time, with 22 Infestors, 15 Broodlords, as you're mentioning before, as if he loses any of that, he's just going to follow up the Corruptors anyways. They've got the 3-3, and, you know, it kind of reminds me of Terran in Brood War, where they would just slowly leapfrog further and further ahead, but you can make Spine Crawlers and Spore Crawlers endlessly, so where exactly can you even attack here? It might have to be a mass recall in the main to try and just go around all these static defenses, because you can't really beat them in a straight-on battle, and that's a lot of Spore Crawlers there. So if he does send in ground units when the army's out of position, could clean up all those Spore Crawlers easily with just ground units. There's the Warp in the main base, but I mean, all these battles, they don't really matter that much. It's going to come down to when the biggest battle happens, and if he can kill these infestors out of position. But he does decide to go for it on the left side here. He's got to be so careful.
He's got a lot of money to replenish those interceptors, but look how clumped up all the carriers are. One mistake and the game is over. If he gets fungled with a raw trap, the Infested Terrans and Corruptors will make this the easiest one-sided battle that anybody's ever seen all weekend. So he has to be very careful with his movement. Has to spread out so thinly. And even on the right-hand side, we did see Squirtle attempt to take a new base, but Infested Terrans again, Roaches again, never allowing a new base to go up.
Oh man, we do see the Zealots on the right side trying to harass the main. For the Spine Cars there holding on for now. He may lose his main base just a little bit, but that doesn't really matter at this point, but it looks like there's even enough spine crawlers there. Does look at the base on the left side, gets taken out. Both players still just trying to jockey for a good position here to engage at, but I feel like for Squirrel right now, he actually needs to just try and max recall into the main, or mass recall, excuse me. He is going to go for it on the left side here, though, and that's a lot of stuff. 1-2, Fungals goes down, which means that, you know, this army is very vulnerable here. The Interceptors can get fungled as well. That's something that a lot of Zerg players always try to basically teach their own kind of, is that you can't fungal on those Interceptors, which cleans them up super easy. You see his Interceptor count did get lowered there by quite a bit, but does lose the Hive in the main base. But really at this point, Hive isn't that important because he's got all the upgrades and all the tech already. So he's actually have to kill those tech structures to make it worth it.
Yeah, really nice play from Squirtle, just wearing down 3-3-2 Zealots are pretty much unbeatable. They won't die to simple defenses like Spines. Infestors will have to be used here, and even that is going to waste energy and so on. So nice play there by Squirtle, who just has that Warp Prism just continuing to warp in units on that right side, that right flank. Though I think Squirtle, upon taking that fight in the middle, realized, holy crap, that was hard, and he didn't really do anything either. The one thing that Curious is really missing is some extra queens, I think, should come back to transfuse a lot of the Infestors, a lot of the Broodlords, because there's a lot of energy. At this stage of the game, you're never hitting every single Lava Inject, so he's got a lot of energy to use and spare.
Yeah, and I mean, even hitting every Larva Inject right now would be kind of silly. He's at 62 Larva, so he really needs to focus on that defensive stuff, and that's exactly what he's going to be doing right now. I mean, more Spore Crawlers are there. We've seen him continue to throw down Spines throughout his bases. He has protected those Spires and Greater Spire relatively good, and just now throwing down a spawning pool once again, realizing, oh yeah, I did indeed lose a lot of tech. And those poor larvae in the main base are running out of creeps. They're going to start exploding relatively soon. But again, he has so much right now that it comes down to the big unit battles versus the big units. And right now, I mean, Curious is just playing this out so smart. We've seen a lot of Zerg players in every tournament get to an almost seemingly unstoppable position, only to find themselves overextending and losing that army there. And that's Curious is not going to fall susceptible to that. He knows, hey, I'm ahead. So if not only in the series, but also in this game. So if I can just force him to engage me in a favorable location, then I'm closing out this series very easily. We do see some minor War Prism harassment here. Storm's thrown down, but I mean, really, what else is there to say other than we are just waiting for the timing of these players to figure out when they can do a big attack.
I think one thing to note, which is just as the actual army, is the money in the bank. Only 1,000 gas in the bank for Squirtle. He can no way replenish this army, and right now we're going to have another fight, and the Fungals are going to be so key here.
So key indeed. He definitely needs to try and get a good angle right now, and so far just having one hell of a time doing that as he did engage the Spine Crawlers efficiently. He is ahead in supply, but just wait until some of that larva gets dumped into a big army here. And Interceptor production, once again, has had to kick into 12 at a time, showing you how effective fungal growth on Interceptors is. Because you got to remember that Interceptors cost money, and Fungals do not. 17 Corruptors on the way as predicted here, but that gas count is so low. But that's because the High Templar count is at 16. I don't know if I've ever seen 16 High Templar and 12 carriers in the same army. But I feel like this mothership needs to do something. That's kind of how you have to win these late game engagements, is whether it's using a mass recall or a vortex, you've got to figure out how to use the mothership before they use it against you with Drill Parasite.
Number one rule for both of these guys is do not get clumped up. Do not, because of course Fungal and Infested Terrans will nail everything. Likewise will the Vortex and the Archon. So he's got to be so careful. But look in the main base once again with Ventral Sacks now available to use. And Infested Terrans come to play, and the carriers have to come back to defend.
And this isn't what you want with the big Broodlord army moving out on the left side. Yes, there's not a whole lot there, but he needs everything he can get right now because he's not going to be expanding anytime soon. The Infestors do get taken out here as the Observer has spotted that. So the Infestor hit squad has been severely weakened, although 3 of them will survive as he is desperately trying to fall back here to defend versus the Broodlords. If he can catch the Broodlords out of position, that would be huge, but at the same time, I mean, the Corruptor count's going to get so high that, you know, losing a couple Broodlords here and there is not going to matter. We mentioned the money in the bank, 3,000 gas for Zerg, only 80 gas for Protoss, and if you take a look at that income tab, there is no income at all. So what you see is what you get. And right now, all he's going to get is more Interceptors and more Zealots. He's got to win with what he has here.
And here we are going to have maybe the last engagement in this game. How is it going to go down? The Corruptors need to bring down that mothership. The Interceptors just fungled in mid-air, not doing nothing there. And there are so many units from both players. Just a colossal fight to end the game potentially.
But there is going to be a Vortex going down. Does grab a lot of those units. Where's the Archons? There they are. Got to go ahead and go inside that. However, you can counter this by throwing a lot of Infested Terrans in that Vortex. We'll see if he actually is able to do that or not. No, he has decided to back out here. Can the Vortexes actually be enough here? My computer can barely handle it. It does look like the Corruptor's got to get taken out, but there's a lot of money in the bank. Storm's going down to deal with those Infested Terrans here, but it's going to be so tough to actually kill this off. His Archon count's looking pretty good. His carrier count's looking even better here. He is way ahead in supply. Can he actually push through here? 14 Corruptors on the way. Is that all the larva he has? No, he's still got 24. So he's still not at this just yet because you got to remember, still no reinforcements here at a Squirtle. He needs to at least be warping in Zealots though. I'm not sure what's up with that.
That was the sickest Vortex ever, catching every single Broodlord, and that's just changed the game around completely. And all of a sudden, Squirtle, from what it seemed like maybe a losing position, is in the lead at the moment. But 14 Corruptors, 5 more Infestors, the bank now, which is what we talked about before, is coming into play for Curious. He still has, underground, 24 Infestors. 24 Infestors, that's a lot of energy available, but they don't quite, well, they're not maxed out yet. They don't have the energy available yet. And Squirtle is on a terrible death march. Can it be stopped?
Well, I'm still surprised seeing no Zealots being warped in at all. I feel like he might be more confident than he should be here because he needs every unit he can get versus those Infestors. Plus, you got to remember that that's a lot of Neural Parasites. This army can be used against himself in just a moment if he does decide to go for it. There's a lot of units up here. The Infestors coming from behind, but I don't know. That is a lot of Corruptors. Here's the Infestor count. It's looking super high right now. There is only one Observer on the field. Is it in position to deal with this? I don't think so. But right now, I'm just surprised to see him not use any of that money. He's been sitting at 3,000 resources. I think maybe he's saving it for the Interceptors, but he needs some more meat on the ground because once these Infestors reveal themselves, it is going to be very painful. You see him backing out here.
I think he may be teamed to find out what his opponent's going to use and remaking, and then be like, all right, well, the best unit here is going to be this. And that's the only logical explanation of why he's not really building units right now. His opponent, though, is just running out of lava, too. Because he has been losing queens, he is losing hatcheries, and the carriers and High Templar underneath is a combination which I feel may not be stoppable. And it's going to have to come down to the Infestors. The Infestors are the only units, really, that can still win this here for Curious.
Needs to focus down these Spires and Infestation Pit as quickly as he can. And then now, as we were talking about before, now he has to restart that lair tech because he's going to start losing these tech structures. And so that means he's not going to be able to build Corruptors, not going to be able to build Infestors, but needs to focus them down. There goes the Greater Spire right there, and that is going to delay the army by quite a bit. It is 104 supply to 133 here. This game is definitely starting to heat up because the Zerg player just lost all of his tech, but look at that army. I can't believe he has so many units without having any income right now. Neither of these players are mining that much. I mean, the income tab shows like what you start the game with, and there's some storms going down right now to deal with those Infested Terrans. But right now, Squirtle is backed into a corner here, so this is all he's got left. If he cannot figure out a way to kill off all of these Infestors, it's going to be a huge fungals on the Interceptors. But can he deal with the Infestors here? It's gonna be tough. He is slowly running out of money, and I guess now it's going to come down to this last kind of awkwardly positioned battle. You can see him trying to kill these rocks to escape with this High Templar here, but both players have got to be so careful.
This is so tense right now. The Corruptors are so strong. They're at 3-3, and they're just going to bring down the carriers so easily with Fungal, with Infestors behind them. So the Storms are crucial as well in defending this. Once again, the carriers taking damage. Fungal's missed, trying to grab them, but he does miss indeed. Oh, that was a big grab there, and I'm sure in a few seconds the Corruptors are looking to get right in there.
Nice storms on the Infestors, though, here back and forth. Keep an eye on the supplies. They're going to be telling exactly how this game's going. The carriers, though, are working on the Broodlords, which is exactly what you want, although the Broodlord's working on the High Templar, which you do not want as Pro does. And oh no, he's going to lose all the High Templar. All he's got left of the carriers, but the Fungals are going down. Where's the Neural Parasites? He does have enough energy here. Wouldn't be surprised to see it utilized, but he's just going for a straight-on death blow to the army of Squirtle. There's not a whole lot of anti-air left here, but guess what? There's no carriers left either. Only 4 carriers remain. He's trying to get out of there, but he's got nothing left. All he can do is warp in Zealots from here on out. He's been stuck on 80 gas for an extremely long time, and there's the GG out of Squirtle. The carriers unable to do it in that last battle. Taking a look at the units tab, there was